What was that disgusting thing someone you were dating told you, and it changed your image of them? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. He relayed the story of how he had thrown a full milkshake out of a moving car at an old lady who was walking on the sidewalk and hit her full in the chest. He could barely get the story out. He was laughing so hard. I thought this was something he had maybe done when he was in middle school and trying to show off for his friends. That would have been bad enough. No, he did this when he was 21. What a plain freaking F you, John. Story 2. My ex completely changed after we got married. When I asked him why he'd lied to me about who he was before, he literally said, "I didn't think you'd like me if you knew." I'm straight. I was like, "Don't you think I kinda deserve to decide that for myself? Now I just can't trust you at all." And he said, "But then you wouldn't have married me." Surprise, surprise, we got divorced. Story 3. While fighting with his younger brother about politics and who was right, who has the blue check mark next to their name, he was 48 years old trying to one-up his 34-year-old brother as if he should recognize his wisdom. Ah, yes, elite Instagram man. Story 4. Months after telling my ex how I felt sexually violated by him and ongoing abuse and arguments, he revealed to me that his first thought after me telling him how I felt was, "I'll show you what it's really like to be violated." And he essentially confessed to planning how he wanted to rape me, down to the detail. I already resented him, but this made me genuinely fear him. Story 5. A couple months after an ex cheated on me and I gave him another chance, one of his friends who I liked hanging out with confessed to being into me. I told my ex-BF at the time what happened, and he said he knew and even encouraged his friend to try to hook up with me because you guys flirt all the time, so go for it and we'll call it even. Made me realize how emotionally manipulative he was, trying to bait me into sleeping with someone else so I didn't have a leg to stand on anymore. Story 6. Not really dating because we had only one date, but this guy on a first date proudly tells me about how when his ex kicked him out of the house, she owned the house. He took an upper decker in all 3 of the toilets in the house, meaning he in the tank, and hid his literal feces between the mattress and box spring of her bed and the guest bed, and also smeared on the bottom of several kitchen drawers and in 2 register vents. The kicker. His version of why she kicked him out and deserved the literally, he gave her was she was crazy. She got jealous just because she's wasting her life working for the man. And I still know how to have fun and not let money control me. I bailed on that date so fast. Story 7. First date. Guy called the waitress the N-word. Thank God she didn't hear. He and I had an intense exchange and I saw his jaw lock up. That's what my ex-husband's jaw would do right before he was gonna lose it, so I was on defense and a tad scared, but I held my own. Then I made him very mad. I can't remember what I said, but I knew it was pissing him off. So I backed fine a bit and told a joke. He then made a half-serious joke about leaving me at the restaurant, and I said good thing I drove. I drove myself in first few dates, as a matter of personal policy so I can leave if I need. The date ended early, and I never saw his ass again. That shit. How ignorant does one have to be to say that about another person? I don't get it. I never will. Story 8. Told me how her and her male housemate would take bets on how hard people she went on dates with would try to contact her, and how long it would take them. Would ice out caring friends and brag about it. Then preached that everyone should go to therapy, yeah babe. Some more than others. Story 9. He told me he studied a type of dating strategy called the game. It was all about keeping women guessing and getting them to feel like they had to have you. It was so gross. And I don't understand why he told me. I had worked with him for years before we dated, and he was such a sweet guy. But that nonsense was the end. Story 10. I have hypersexuality from trauma. I can't help it as a response to me confronting him for cheating on me through sexting. We should have a threesome. No, not with a guy. I don't like having sex with guys, only girls. It's okay. I'll let you pick the girl. I would probably end up marrying an Asian woman. They have the cutest asses to me. A white person. You're the reason your ex killed himself. Story 11. After knowing him for like 6 years, he randomly told me he was really depressed I quit my old job and that I had lost a lot of use to him. The wording really threw me off. He was pretty good at masking, so I thought he just misstated it. Surely my use wasn't my career. Oh, no, it was. He said that a big part of his interest in me was my career because he had hoped to have one like mine, and it's how we met. So me switching was a bit of a letdown. Eventually, he clarified that even though I was now making over 5 times salary to what I made at my prior job, and had completely transformed my life, and shared a lot of that money with him, daily. From good food to designer clothes he liked. The fact that I no longer worked in his industry made him sad every day, and he felt like I should have stayed in that industry to help his career by having contacts and advice. But he knew I was selfish and would take that the wrong way. Story 12. This is really specific and not even that bad compared to other stories in this thread, but it was like the seed that led to my entire view of him changing. We'd gone for some afternoon drinks on a Saturday and afterwards went to the shops to buy some snacks and wine to take home. We were both a little tipsy but not drunk. When we were in the wine aisle, he picked up a bottle to check the price. Then when he tried to put it back on the shelf, he dropped it and it shattered on the floor. He stared at the smashed bottle for a few seconds, then just turned and walked away. I was just left on my own and couldn't just leave the broken bottle there, so I found an employee and pointed it out and offered to pay for it or help clean up in some way. But they said it was fine. I still felt terrible. Afterwards, I asked him why he'd just left the broken bottle without saying anything, and he just shrugged and was like it wasn't my fault. Who cares? I still think about it sometimes and randomly feel really sad. It was a small mom and pop kind of store, and the wine was probably 10-15 euros. It was just so apathetic and shitty of him. Turns out, he was kind of an apathetic and shitty person in real life too. It just hadn't been directed at me. Yet. Story 13. I deal with sciatica. It's excruciatingly painful and makes walking difficult. I walk with a pretty severe limp. This was new to me 3 years ago and new to her. She didn't see the extent of my pain display due to the amount I was working at the time. Our first time in public, walking from the car to Home Depot. She stops dead in her tracks, turns to me and says, "You need to stop walking like that. You're embarrassing me. People are looking." The tone of utter disgust and anger in her voice was repulsive. I felt so hurt, betrayed, and disappointed. My entire image of this woman that I loved had shattered. Everything was downhill from there. Several months later, I had been taking an antidepressant, which she offered up the task of refilling my monthly pill sorter because I was struggling to keep up with my meds. Each day had its own pod. I was on so many different meds at one point that I just assumed that everything was in the pods and I'd wake up and take the whole thing like a shot. She failed to inform me that after X day, I was out of said antidepressant and it needed a refill called in. As a result of this, over the course of the next several days, I had increasingly worsening withdrawal symptoms. One day, upon returning home with my son, I had collapsed on the porch steps and blacked out. He banged on the door and was screaming for me to wake up. I eventually was somewhat mentally there, but physically could not get up or say anything. She finally came out, pulled him quickly into the house and came out and nudged me with her foot several times and with that same tone from before said, "Get up. This is disgusting, and you're embarrassing me. The neighbors can see you." And then proceeded to leave me on the porch for 15+ minutes until I was able to crawl inside. There are so many other instances of this from this woman that I can't even remember half of them, but I remember how she made me feel. I don't ever want to date again. I've never felt so betrayed in my life. Just to clarify, I wasn't perfect in this relationship by any means. I had my downfalls and caveats, mostly mental health-related depression, ADHD, autism struggles. But I was never cruel, mentally, emotionally, or physically abusive. She would get chronic migraines and would have to sleepy for 3 days, and without hesitation, I did what I could to tend to her, check in on her, treat her with the human decency she deserved. But when I'd have a multiple days of burnout, depressive sleep episodes, she would get irate and scream bloody murder at me. I really hate that I decided to type any of this and am mentally reliving it. Yuck. Story 14. My ex liked to go get massages. I didn't think much of it at first. I went with him one time, and the place we went didn't seem shady. He told me a few months into our relationship that he had gotten more than a massage a couple times, going into a little more detail than I was comfortable with. Grossed me out probably more than he expected. Unrelated, a few months later, he asked me during an argument if I was going to be just a bartender my entire life. Once I got sober, almost everything he said turned me off. Story 15. I wasn't dating him, but when he asked me why I didn't want kids and I explained the risks and how little it appealed to me, he told me I knew too much. He already knew I was studying pathology, so that really sealed that nothing was ever going to happen between us. All right, folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.